Brothers and sisters, I'm sure many of you are keeping up on what's happening in the US. One day there is an assassination attempt against Donald Trump. The resulting media attention and associated sympathy bolster the polls with a safe win forecasted for the Republican Party. Shortly after that, President Joe Biden is convinced to stand down as candidate for the next election, and Vice President Kamala Harris replaces him. With that move comes relief as new life is breathed into the Democrat campaign. And just as suddenly the polls swing back in favour of a Democrat Party win. Then within days, RFK Jr., formerly a Democrat, but then running as an independent, suddenly throws his support behind the Trump campaign. As a member of the Kennedy family, which some say is the closest thing to royalty in the Democrat Party, this was an unthinkable move, and RFK Jr. has since been publicly derided by his family, parts of the media, and Democrat supporters alike. We now await to see the impact on the polls. You may be asking yourself what all of this has got to do with today's readings. Well, a lot in fact. We observe in the US what seems to be unprecedented division and a great internal battle. This same battle is being fought right across the Western world. The battle for the moral high ground, the battle for decency, the battle for truth, the battle for common sense. But if we consider history carefully, we'll see that this same battle, in so many different forms, has been raging since the fall of humanity. 2,000 years ago, it was a battle being played out between Jesus and the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes. In Moses' time, 1400 years before that, God set before the people laws and ordinances to keep them from straying into one falsehood or another, into one form of immorality or another. And to keep them on the right path, we hear Moses saying to the people in the first reading, "You must add nothing to what I command you, and take nothing from it. But keep the commandments of the Lord your God just as I lay them down for you." As I said, this battle has been raging since humanity's first sin. As humans, we have the tendency to go into error on the right, that is adding to the faith, or on the left, that is taking away from the faith, according to our dispositions. To hold tight to the middle ground, where lies truth, where lies virtue, where lies true Christian morality, is hard work. Today's big battle in the US is over two significant moral issues: so-called reproductive rights on one hand, and illegal immigration at the southern border on the other. Reproductive rights, which is a nice way of saying having the right to kill the baby in my womb without repercussions or guilt, appears to have become a central platform for electoral success. Close behind this is the stopping of illegal immigration from Central and South America, from parts of the world in great turmoil with various forms of dictatorship, social unrest, economic collapse, and many desperate people trying to get to the safer ground in the north. One may ask, are endless wars and the demonizing of all these immigrants, because a small percentage of those who cross are criminals, the appropriate Christian response? Brothers and sisters, which of the two parties vying for power can really claim to have the moral high ground and to be following all the commandments of the Lord without adding or taking away? The problem, I think, is that parties of both sides of politics, in a sense, have been losing their way for some time. And so, appropriately, Jesus reminds every single one of us today when he says, "You put aside the commandment of God to cling to human traditions." On one hand, abortion today is considered a new human tradition, a human right, and so the Western world has put aside the commandment of God, "Thou shalt not kill." On the other hand, in the name of man-made national boundaries and an implied nation's right to its own resources, we risk ignoring Jesus' words in so many places, stressing the imperative to look after and care for the poor and destitute. Sadly, of these two moral issues being fought over in the US, abortion and immigration, abortion seems to be the one with the greatest possibility of producing a party win. Brothers and sisters, how have we arrived at this day, the day of which Isaiah said, "Woe to them in that day when they call evil good and good evil"? The fact that so many Catholics support these measures means they've lost the central understanding of the human person, that we're made in the image and likeness of God. From the moment of conception, two separate human cells, an egg and a sperm, come together to create an independent organism that is both alive and human, and to which God adds an eternal soul. This is not an argument about whether a woman has reproductive rights or not. The issue is about whether the tiny, helpless human person exists and has a right to live the full life God has given them. Brothers and sisters, I think that many Americans today can look back, irrespective of their political persuasion, and see that John F. Kennedy, JFK for short, and Robert F. Kennedy, RFK, were significant American politicians with good intentions. And I suspect that these two men would both be horrified as devout practicing Catholics to see what their party now sees as a central issue in their election platform: the right for a mother to kill a baby in her womb. So let us pray that the major parties contesting the US election can return to what JFK and RFK originally stood for: the rights of every single living human being to have a safe, secure, prosperous, dignified, blessed life from conception to death, whether a baby in the womb or illegal immigrants crossing borders for a better life for them and their children. In finishing, let us hearken to the words of St. James in the second reading when he reminds us that we must do what the word tells us and not just listen to it and deceive ourselves. So, brothers and sisters, let us never forget that all lives matter to God.